Ruthless Compassion is a podcast about people who've turned their emotional shit into fertilizer for success. It's about seeing our darkest moments as opportunities for growth and transformation. Raymond Van Gobel, known as Mr. Rayz, is a kids entertainer with heart. He is an educator, performer, and best known for his live shows with a focus on emotional intelligence. After COVID-19 hit, he has had to develop new music and tools to bring relief, comfort, joy, and resilience to our stressed-out quarantine kids. He studied childcare counseling, trauma-informed care, and also how music impacts kids for over 20 years. He has just started a live stream Vulcan Television show, Mr. Rayz and the Cuddlebuddies. Welcome, Mr. Rayz, to the Ruthless Compassion podcast. Welcome, Ray Van Gobel, to the Ruthless Compassion podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me, Marcia.
It's great to have you. Just to start, maybe you can tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do.
Okay, my name is Mr. Rayz. I'm a kids entertainer as well as an educator. What I do is songwriting for kids as well as workshops. My whole thing is heart smart music. So it's building emotional intelligence into children. That's just one of the things that I've learned to do well. And I've taken some background in that as well.
So how did you say you have some background, how did you get into doing music for children?
When I was younger, I ended up going to a Bible school, to be honest. And while I was there, I ended up going to an orphanage down in South America. And in the orphanage, I just had a couple of really powerful encounters with kids there. And I just saw the need. And just because of my own background of not having strong emotional connections with my family, because they're kind of a typical Asian family where they wouldn't do a lot of affirmation or touch and all that stuff, my needs, found that those kind of needs were reflected in children at the orphanage. So that's how I kind of got into doing passion for helping them.
And had you been in music before this?
I wasn't formally trained. I, took guitar lessons when I was 20, and I learned a couple things from music school, but mostly it's just after school clubs, youth groups, playing in the college bands that gave me my experience with music. And I also had a background because I was studying creative writing at UNBC. And so I've always been a writer. So writing songs for kids has been easy for me.
Mm-hmm. So you were saying how, like, in your background, you felt like this lack of affirmation, and that was what was driving you to do more for children. But you want to say a little bit more about the connection for you?
When I was at the Bible school, I took a thing. It was called Child Psychology Introduction for Working with Children in Need. And when I took that school, I just became more and more aware of some of my deficiencies and how, my father didn't really say it. He was kind of a workaholic Asian accountant. So we just never would see him. And so a lot of affirmation things didn't happen, a lot of kind of boundary setting, a lot of receiving that I'm loved for who I am, kind of the Mr. Rogers thing kicked in a bit more. So I learned a lot of things about myself through that school and through that program that I had to work on. So basically it was a class on child psychology that also pushed all of my buttons and made me aware of things that I needed. So,
but isn't that often the way it goes?
Yeah. Like a lot of us Gen X people, like Mr. Rogers is my dad. You know what I mean? Like he spoke so much. He was the king of emotional intelligence. He wrote all those songs. So, a lot of time I'm holding the frame, as Tony Robbins says, and just following all the stuff that he's done for people and just how he gave those words to me as a Gen X kid in front of a TV.
Yeah, he was wonderful for sure. So there you were, 20, going to Bible camp and learning how to play guitar and realizing about, what you didn't get. But how did that translate into you becoming a children's entertainer and educator?
Right after high school, I spent like a year just working in a warehouse and working as a waiter at Earl's. Good experience. And I was just trying to figure out my life. And I had some experience with youth group. And then when I went to the orphanage in South America, everything just kind of blossomed that I should be working with kids more. What happened was I had a spiritual experience where I felt like there was a bunch of kids that I kind of saw in a dream where they were all hurting, and I was holding on to a kid that was beat up, and I just realized, okay, there's a whole bunch of fatherless kids that I'm going to say that don't have dads, or because of that single parent thing. There's a need for someone to be that gap and to kind of show them and affirm them and to bring them into being.
It's true that there are a lot of children these days who are living with mostly women, and they don't have a lot of positive male role models in a lot of different communities.
Yeah, like one of the things that I've learned is that like in African culture, and even I'm Indonesian, so my dad's from Jakarta, from Lumajang in Indonesia, and my mom is from Jakarta. And part of my Javanese history, my name is Raymond, son of Moses, son of Hokjong, son of Chiju. So I can go back 4 generations. And I know that when I look at my ancestors, they're able to like go and hunt and find food in the jungle and also cry their face off for a week. You know what I mean? And like they know mourning and they know suffering, but they also know joy. And there's that whole landscape is not here right now in the Western world, especially because of COVID-19. Like no one knows how to express their emotions right now. So, well, not no one, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's not necessarily a common thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, especially with men and stuff, right, and males, and just kind of the whole Movember thing of just learning to be vulnerable and knowing that there's vulnerability, but there's also strength, right? So you can cry, but you can also punch someone in the face to defend someone, right?
So what do you mean by this whole Movember thing? Because I know that Movember is the movement for men, and prostate cancer, but I'm not sure what you mean by the vulnerability thing.
One of the big deals is with Movember, like I have bipolar disorder that I manage in recovery. I'm a facilitator with OBAD, which is the Organization for Bipolar Affective Disorder. I'm a director on the board. I lead groups once a month. And the Movember movement is the same thing. It's about men's mental health as well as prostate cancer and stuff. So with our work in Calgary with OBAD and basically Alberta, we do Red Deer as well as Edmonton. Part of the reason why I got involved was to talk about mental health issues with men. And so Movember, they give a platform for that. When people don't shave and they grow a mo, they're able to use money raised through donations to help these causes for men, especially male suicide.
Oh, okay. So it's not just prostate cancer. That's really good to know. And it's good for all the listeners to be aware of, because I don't know if anyone was, more aware than I was that it was for, mental health and men's suicide. That's very good.
Yeah. Like the male suicide rates are just, even now, like our Zoom meetings for the facilitation I lead for men and women with bipolar, anxiety, or depression. We went from meetings that went from 20 people to up to like 47 now. It is crazy on our Zoom. So we've got like 2 or 3 extra meetings because of COVID-19, and just the amount of stress people are under. Like normal people have stress, right? My kids have stress, but when you have a brain-based illness and you have that mental stress, that's even more damaging. It's hard for people to live under these circumstances.
For sure, it's hard for people who don't have any chronic mental health conditions, and for sure for people who have these conditions, that's just that much more pressure.
Yeah, and just to go back about like the whole thing of being affirmed with my background and why I want to work with kids, like touch is a huge deal right now for kids, for anybody, right? We had a therapist speak recently, and she said that after every Zoom meeting or after every FaceTime or screen time, you should give yourself a hug for 30 seconds, or you should pick up, your dog or your cat, do some kind of physical stimuli. Because what happens is we see our friends and we're so excited to see them on our screen to want to give them a hug. We want to have some kind of a touch tactile part of it to feed that part of ourselves. Yeah, I just think that the whole area of touch is just not, is missing so much in our communication. And I'm trying to get to the place of how do we connect in this new way and in this new world when COVID-19 is happening. And, sooner or later, like we're at stage 2 now, or then stage 3, go back to stage 1 at any time, right? So we got to prepare ourselves for that.
Yeah, for sure. If we look down south of the United States and what's going on there, it's definitely a distinct possibility that we might have to sort of backpedal a little bit for a while.
Yeah, like even now, I just did a virtual show for Australia on Saturday from Calgary. I've got another friend that's doing songwriting in Ontario. So like right now we're at a place in history where virtual services and face and screen time, we can use this for good, right?
For sure, absolutely. So there you were in your youth, deciding to be a children's entertainer and educator. You'd had your own mental health challenges and you were going to, go off and be there. But how do you get a job as a kids entertainer / educator? Where do you find work doing that, right?
Oh man, I hear you. See, the thing is, it's always been like a part-time thing, right? But my first real job was I was a kids pastor, a children's minister, right? So I went to school, the Bible school. I got training in it, and then I did that for about a year and a half. And then since then, it's always been kind of a part-time thing until COVID-19 happened. So I basically had to work for a couple months because of my bipolar disorder, believe it or not. So I asked for about a month. And then my ex-wife at the time said to me, hey, you're good with kids. Remember when you were a kids pastor? Why don't we phone up a bunch of preschools and see if you can do music for kids? So check it out, man. After half an hour of cold calls, within the third or fourth call, I got booked to do 32 shows within one preschool organization. They had like 4 schools all over Calgary. And then later on that day, I got another 16 bookings. And then my ex-wife and I realized, holy cow, there's nobody in Calgary doing kids music. Besides the guy from Long and McQuaid that, he has a band and he plays in the pub for his blues rock band, but he's not into the passion that I'm into, right? Mm-hmm. So the thing with kids is they can kind of you got to be on all the time. So if you show up and, you're grumpy and stuff, Mr. Rayz, why are you so grumpy? No one wants to play the music. And if they don't like your songs, it's like the hardest audience. So I found a niche doing that. And since I got that was 32 bookings, things kind of went from there. And the exciting thing for that even was there was a show called Living Calgary, and it was a lifestyle show. So 3 months into me doing Mr. Rayz, I get a call from the host of Living Calgary, and they wanted to come and do a video segment for their program at the school. So here I am, 3 months into doing a full-time job as Mr. Rayz Music for Kids, and I've got a CBC program thing doing an interview for me, and I was still making it up as I went along.
Sometimes that's the best way to go.
Yeah, it's best when no one tells you what to do, because then you're super okay, well, I'm just going to find my own way and be innovative, right?
Yeah. So that obviously gave you more publicity, right?
Yeah. It was funny because it was actually my world music show. And, with Black Lives Matters and everything that's happened since COVID, all these buttons that are being pushed, I'm a first generation Canadian. I was born in Victoria. I was raised with, all of my Caucasian friends. I can barely speak Indonesian at times. I understand it's spoken to me, and I can sing a couple songs in Indonesian. I always do a world music show, and that was what they got. That's what they were interested in when they did the CBC Living Calgary segment on me, world music. And so I've just found that with this climate, I've gotten back a bit more to my roots, and I was wearing my sarong a bit more the other day. My kids call it my man skirt. They're like, you're wearing your man skirt again. I'm like, oh man, it's part of the Javanese culture. You wear this thing when you're out there and you're, in Indonesia doing ceremonial dances and stuff. And I just realized that it's just, if we teach children about how friendly we can be with other races, that just destroys racism when they grow up.
Yeah. If you familiarize kids to other cultures and other ways, then they just become normalized and not scary or other.
Yeah, and so that's also the thing with my OBAD group with bipolar disorder. So my kid and I, since COVID-19, we have our own show, Mr. Rayz and the Cuddlebuddies. We've done a bunch of live streams, and from his perspective, he put together a little show about me having my bipolar disorder and how sometimes I deal with being high energy, and I kind of don't shut up. And I'm moving really fast. And he's got to be hey, Dad, you're wearing all of us out. And so he did this little Cuddle Buddy show. And it was all about, from a kid's perspective, a dad that has mental illness, right? And the response I got from that is that, oh, okay, so kids don't have to be afraid of mental illness. That sometimes if you get enough treatment like I do, and you have therapy and you have support and you have exercise and you have people that love you, you can endure this. So my other thing, besides the whole helping people understand diversity and race, I want children to understand mental health as well. That is nothing to be scared of, that we can work through this. And my son's just been a big help for that.
How old is he now?
He's 10.
Oh, what
So
a
I've
great
got a
age.
10-year-old girl, and I've got a 10-year-old boy, and I got 2 girls. And my second oldest just asked me to teach her guitar. So I'm so happy. You know, like, you don't want to force this stuff on your kids. And I've dragged these poor kids off to all of my concerts. So they know all of my songs, you know. Finally, she asked, Dad, during COVID-19, I want to learn an instrument too. So that's just been the best thing ever.
That's amazing. You know, I was listening to the news the other day, and they were saying how these days, because kids have been out of school and not playing with their friends, the rates of depression and anxiety have really been skyrocketing. And there's a big, big push to send children back to school for their mental health. But of course, there's always the safety issue. So it's a really big concern. You know, on the one hand, children really need that socialization and all those soft skills that they learn. And on the other hand, you know, nobody wants the children or their families or the workers at the school to get sick. So what are your thoughts about that, about, you know, kids and school, and, you know, how to solve this crazy problem?
Here's the thing. Children, at least in Calgary, they've been punished twice because first they were told, no fault of their own, they didn't deserve this. You are now grounded and locked down. You have to stay in your house now. And then, but even though you're grounded, we're not going to give you homework. So everyone was told that they would be graduated from their grade, whether it's grade 7, grade 2, or kindergarten, and then they wouldn't have to do school again until September. Well, 3 weeks later, boom, they get punished again. Nope, now you have to do schoolwork. So in a little kid's mind, you're at home, you're locked down, you're grounded, and then you're punished twice because you have to do homework now. My thoughts about school, and that is, for right now, we've got to redefine that kids can be seen and heard, and that will help them before they go to school. It'll help their mental health for the depression and all that. So, like, I just wrote a song recently, and it's like, I just can't wait to see you. When you light up my screen, I just want to scream, I miss you. So the thing kids need to know is that where they're missed, and that they're valued, and that they're seen. And because they're seen, it means we have a connection with them, and they're not punished for being stuck at home. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. You gotta let kids just be kids. So if anything, I've been doing these 6 o'clock. When it first started happening, I would do 3 o'clock a song and story with my son Micah, and then at 6 o'clock I would do living room dance party, and it's basically everybody dances out their frustrations. Mom and dad put the computer away, and then 9 o'clock I do parent support. So I take off my purple shirt, I take off my Cuddlebuddies, and I sit down and I say, parents, what do you need? How can we connect meaningfully for your kids? And the biggest thing I got was just, we got to build emotional triggers into these kids so that when they can, for me, hear music, it can bring them to a place where they can process and self-regulate these big, big feelings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of big, big feelings these days, aren't there?
Yeah. And, you know, from the therapy I've had, I've got a mentor who's a family therapist and known me for 25 years. And he said to me, you know, Ray, you carry tension in your bodies until you release it with emotion. If you're grumpy or you're mad and no one can give you language and how to deal with that, just like how Mr. Rogers used to have that song, what do you do with the mad that you feel? Just being able to release tension. I tell people all the time, I'm an emotional jungle gym for kids. So I used to be the guy that always did the happy songs, but now I'm like, hey guys, let's do some Pearl Jam songs, and let's do some really raging, mad songs. And then we'll do some songs about being sad. Then afterwards, I'll ask everybody, how do you feel? And they'll be like, oh, I feel great. It's good to get that stuff out, right? And it's just really, really simply as parents, just giving them language for what's going on.
Yeah, that's so valuable just to give them those simple outlets without making a big deal of it, because if you don't make a big deal of it again, then they feel comfortable with it.
Like a case in point with my son, when I was growing up, like I didn't have a lot of boundaries. I was by myself a lot of the time, and so when I got mad and frustrated, I would either sulk and pout, or I would take it out some other way. But my kid, Micah, I've taught him to hey man, you look like you're pretty mad. Why don't you go downstairs and smack on that rod that you do, and then come back when you're feeling better? And so he goes downstairs, and then when I hear him hitting his little T rod with the stick, I know, oh, he's mad. Oh, he's processing that. I'll talk to him about this later. And he's been teaching, my kids have been teaching me that as well with my own therapy. So when I get into a fight, I'm like, okay, man, I gotta go for a walk. I gotta regulate, look after my emotions, and then I can come back afterwards. But isn't that funny? There's a time now where parents are stuck with their kids, and we get a chance to really model that and be that with our kids. And it's hard, heart and soul work, but it's just so worth it because it's a crisis, like you said, this mental health crisis for kids.
But also you can, if you're flexible and open, you can really learn things from them as well as they learn things from you, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. They've, like I said, Mike has taught me a lot about just self-regulating, leaving. And with my mood disorder, with bipolar, my kids will say, you don't look well. You know what I mean? And that'll be because it's a brain-based illness, I don't see myself sometimes getting into the zone of not being healthy. And so once they say something like that, it starts to trigger me. And I've got all this self-care stuff that I work through. And I go, oh, that's a sign that I need to look after myself and slow down and go have a sleep or something. It's been very valuable to learn things from them as well.
That's really nice. It's it's so important as adults that we don't assume that we have all the answers and that we are open to learning from everyone around us. And I'm sure as a children's entertainer and educator, I'm sure that you get entertained a lot and educated a lot from the children that you work with, not only your own children.
Yeah, I do. Here's a funny story. So I'm always trying to write new songs, and do new things. So I wrote a new song 2 years ago, and I was so happy, and I was doing it everywhere at all 12 locations. And then my 11-year-old daughter walks by. She rolls her eyes and says, "Dad, that sounds exactly like the song you wrote 2 years ago." I'm like, oh, I wish you told me that. So that's why all those little kids were looking at me like, Mr. Rayz, that's the same as the Dragon song. That's learning from kids, hey?
That's fantastic. Well, but it's great because you're open to it, right? So you're at an advantage compared to some grown-ups.
And they're my harshest producers and critics. So anything that ends up on the album means it's a good song. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's got the child seal of approval.
I may have cried about it during writing, but I know, okay, thanks, Ben, for making me cry. There'll be a better song tomorrow.
Wonderful. So you're doing obviously a lot these days with COVID, right? You're doing a lot of virtual performing with the restrictions.
Yeah, I'm trying to like I said, this whole thing, I've had to reinvent my career. I used to do all these festivals and stuff, and I was supposed to do Thomas the Train. So Battelle was going to sponsor me. I was going to do 24 shows over 2 weekends. Thomas the Train's 75th birthday. I was telling all my audiences this for months, and then COVID-19 happens, and so I've got all these depressed kids. And I've got a train song, so that's probably one of the main reasons why they booked me. So I'm doing this train song, over some of my live tunes now. And I'm like, hey kids, it's gonna happen. Mr. Ray's still on the retainer. You just gotta wait a couple more months, right? Yeah, just with all the opportunity right now. I'm part of a KindyCom network. I was supposed to go down to Philadelphia, which is the biggest kids community. Kindy is kids independent music. So everyone's there, from Bob's and Lolo to Sunshine and Broccoli, everyone with the TV show. We all head down together and we write songs, and we just encourage each other and find a way to work in the kids music industry. But since that blew up, we have rebelled as artists, and now there's a KindyCom channel on YouTube. Yeah, our goal is to go have to have back to back to back children's shows from all over the world. So it's really cool. Unlike being a rapper, like Eminem or this or that, if children's entertainers don't get along, we destroy our business. It's all about showing kids, hey, let's do Lollapalooza. Let's cover each other's songs. How can we write together and show and model to schools and families togetherness, community, connection? One time when my first CD came out 10 years ago, I went to a music store and asked, would I be able to put my CD in there? And the woman said, oh, no, you can't do that because it'll be competition for the music teachers. And I was like, whoa, that's not how it is. We're all artists. Some people like vanilla ice cream. Some people like chocolate ice cream. People aren't going to like all my stuff or your stuff. That's why there's Pink out there as well as Pearl Jam. You know what I mean? So just that whole thing of us kids artists trying to redefine things and work together. And we have there's a real heavy responsibility, like to kind of model some of this stuff and learn and at the same time be childlike, right?
I love that though. I really love that you're walking the walk, not just talking the talk. You're living your message. And I think that integrity is so important for what you do, but it's also so important to model to the children, right? We're not just saying that, these are the values we preach. We are actually living by those values. And that's beautiful and consistent.
Yeah. A friend of mine, you asked me how I became a kids musician. I did the hold in the frame thing that Tony Robbins says. You find the people that are doing it successfully and you ask them for help. So I interviewed, whenever I have a chance, I talk to someone that's doing great at it. Like I talked to Jack Grunsky, which is a Juno Award-winning kids musician from Ontario, I think. And I sat him down for coffee, got a bunch of ideas from him on how to do things better. We should be able to learn from each other in that aspect in order to look after our kids.
Yeah, there's so many kids, it's not like a competitive market. You don't need to undermine your quote unquote, competition.
In Calgary alone, Garcia, there's 90,000 kids under the age of 5. 90,000 kids. They just started a pilot project last year. And, there's only maybe 6 of us that are children's musicians. And the rest are wizard magicians. You know what I mean? They do all the magic shows. Mm-hmm. So there's plenty for everybody to go along. And, you talked about being a model. My friend who's Christopher Cole, he's a magician. Like his thing, when we first started working together, he's like, Miss Ray, you got to clean up your Instagram page. Because there are some pictures of me, going to a party and having a couple drinks and this and that. And he's like, you know what? I don't even drink unless I'm at home. You know what I mean? Or I'm within a certain picture of me with my friends, it looks like a healthy setting, Mm-hmm. But there's that whole thing of making sure, like you said, if you decide to do this industry, you're somewhat of a model. So try not to freak out on your kids in front of everyone, and be able to be honest and normal with that. But if you're going to freak out, find a way to look after yourselves afterwards and say, hey, this is just me and having a fight. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Did you ever see that show with Jim Carrey? It's just come out. He's
Just Kidding.
What's that?
Just Kidding. His name.
Yes, Kidding. Yeah, that is. Yeah, and he plays a sort of Mr. Rogers, but with an interesting twist kind of character. Yeah, Mr. Pickles.
It's so brilliant. Unbelievable. It's a brilliant show. He shows so much vulnerability, and I can just, wow, what a great show.
Yeah, that's a fun show for all children's performers to watch, just to get a different perspective.
Yeah, especially with the whole thing of his marriage falling apart and then coming back together again. That was unresolved, right? And he was able to, that was just so powerful and beautiful that he showed it that way.
Yeah. It's. I think when you talked about vulnerability at the beginning, I think that there's very few of us who are willing to be vulnerable in a public space, right? We all want to come across as I got it all together, right? I got it all together. I'm fine. Everything's great. I'm just cruising along. My life is fantastic. Look at my Insta page. But to really be vulnerable and to say to other people, I don't have it all together. Sometimes some days are hard and sometimes I feel bad. That I think is the more powerful stance because it shows that you're not afraid to show your authentic self.
Yeah. It's funny, like when the teachers who were laid off, like a lot of the teachers' assistants, about 70% of the support staff. So that meant psychologists, speech therapists, all those people who were left off the grid while we did homeschooling for 3 months. And I wrote this song called The Sad Song. And it goes like, I'm sad, so sad. It's okay to feel this way. It's okay when you don't know what to say. And when it hurts like this, and I can't resist, I've got to call a friend and tell someone, maybe my dad or mom, because I've had a bad day. I've just had a really bad day. And so I was playing the song, like when it just came out, it became really fresh to me. And my mom was listening, and she said, I just bawled. I had such a bad day that day. And it was just like the whole Jim Carrey thing. I didn't resolve the song. I just said, yeah, I've just had a bad day. Like, just keep saying how bad it was. That's it. Right. Yeah. And it's just, especially because stress and anxiety happens because you can't tell the future. You can't be in control of it. And we've got to find ways to say, you know what? We're living like the Buddhism. I think it's like grasping and releasing is a part of their thing, right? So you just kind of live in that tension of the future hasn't happened yet. The past is gone forever. How do I take deep breaths back and forth and live the swirl of pandemic and unpredictability?
Yeah, and I think that part of it is allowing yourself to be vulnerable, because if you don't feel like you need to have it all together and need to have all the answers, then you can be more resilient and flexible and just kind of go with the flow and be present and respond to what's happening in the moment.
I love that. That's totally true. Yeah. And, it's funny, like, especially right now, like my thing is more than just doing a show now. I really want to be more of a songwriter for kids. And so my thing is that a child should be able to connect with a song that can be either a shield or a blanket that can protect them on their worst days. So when they're having a hard day and no one understands them, this song that they've created or they've connected with becomes their blanket, comforts them. And when their mom and dad are like just the heavy stress of the house is getting them, it becomes a shield to them as well. So how do you find ways? It doesn't have to be my song. It could be any song from the radio or something that they can just make their own. You know what I mean?
And I would add one thing. I would say it's also like a lifeline, because the song can like draw them into something, like it draw them into themselves or draw them into some other support. So I would also call it a lifeline, like a rope.
Yeah, I'm gonna steal that. That's awesome.
You're welcome to it. No one else will know about it. It's our little secret.
What rhymes with lifeline? With like especially with the stresses of businesses and stuff right now with families and stuff. I just have to say that if you look after the children, businesses will be rewarded. I'm telling that to everybody. If you look after kids right now in this time of COVID-19, I'm a stressed out parent. I'm going to the mall. If someone has a clown out there and my kids can see a clown and be happy for the half an hour that I'm shopping around, I'm going to go back to that business again and again. So I think there's some kind of spiritual component that we're stuck as families. How can we be the best families to each other?
And I think to take that, like to extend that a little bit, we're also families with our community. And even though we might not be connecting in person with our community, we're still all responsible for each other and still interconnected. And we need to remember that. So when people start getting, angry and, sort of taking out their frustrations on each other, to remember all these people are your extended family in your community and treat them with more love.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, like since it started, my hashtag has been kids helping kids. Kids helping kids. Because what happens is me and now, Aviel and Cassie, my other daughters, were watching the show when they're younger. Something happened in India where there is like a big typhoon or a flood. And my kids are like, Daddy, those kids have no food. Daddy, what are we going to do? Those kids have no food. So it's exactly what you said about looking after each other and, being connected as a global community. And, get into that mindset with the people that you're helping, and even with kids here, that they look after each other. It's such a huge curve, hey? Jeez.
Yeah. Yeah, that's wonderful. So just before we wrap up, I just wanted to ask you, where can people find you if they're looking to, check you out, check out what you're up to these days?
MrRayz.com is my website. I'm just in the middle of doing a relaunch of that. And also on Instagram at MrRayz. One of the projects is we're actually doing a YouTube channel, and my son has a part. It's called Micah and the Cuddlebuddies, and he writes, produces, and puts everything together with my stuffies. So we're going to do a lot more stories from his point of view and release songs. But MrRayz.com is the place to go. And right now, I'm the first virtual artist in residence for the Highland Libraries, and I'm putting together a thing called Crush COVID-19. So if you be part of this thing and you write the best songs about what happened during COVID, you win ukuleles and some other prizes.
Oh, so fantastic.
Get all that information at MrRayz.com and have your kids write a song with me about crushing COVID-19.
Beautiful. And just before we end, do you have a call to action for the listeners?
My thing now is grabbing songs for your kids. So helping them to self-regulate and build. And the way they can do that is play songs around the house that you want your kids to remember during this time. So I'm thinking like I've been playing Alanis Morissette's song, Thank You. Thank you, India. Thank you, Paris. Thank you, Silence. Thank you, all this stuff. And then it's kind of seeping in. And I'm playing, Shake It Out by Florence and the Machine. So if parents can think about songs that your kids would be able to grasp onto and redefine this time, that will help them self-regulate as well as, have good memories. More important thing is that they get to be kids. Like one of the songs that really speaks to me is Wasted Time by Keith Urban. He's talked about childhood memories and stuff. Let's make sure that we make good childhood memories and that you find songs around the house that can build in emotional triggers to take in places to feel safe and have joy.
I love it. I absolutely love it. I'm going to start doing that right now. I'm going to start playing music full blast around the house.
Thanks.
Well, thank you so much, Raymond, for coming on the show today.
You're welcome anytime on stage with me. I hope to get out to Ontario, and for sure, I'd like to see you do some dancing to the Mr. Rayz TikTok tunes.
Sounds like a plan. Alrighty. Well, all the best. Stay safe.
Thank you so much, Marcia.
That was the delightful Raymond Van Gobel, otherwise known as Mr. Rayz. And I'm Dr. Marcia Sirota. If you like this podcast, please review it wherever you listen, and you can sign up for my free newsletter at marciasirotamd.com, where you'll learn about the summer of self-care and how to cope with COVID.